Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. My name is Jarrod Prugar, and I'm joined by my co-host and good friend, Kevin Quigley. Kevin, it's been a while, and since we last spoke, much has been said about the Penn State Nittany Lions heading into the 2025-2026 season.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we missed the spring game during our hiatus. It was not televised, so if you were not able to make the trip to State College on that third weekend in April, then you were not able to see the spring game. I was one of those, so sad to have missed out. Heard I didn't miss a lot, but would have been nice to still see some live action, still see some football. But yeah, since spring practice is over, all the transfer portal windows are closed for the time being. Now it's time to look forward to the last weekend in August and that first weekend of the college football season. And if you're a Penn State fan, you've got to be feeling pretty good. You know, ESPN has come out with their preseason rankings. Every other college football outlet has come out with their preseason rankings as well. And you and I both know that preseason rankings are kind of bogus. They're a bit of a whimsical math that goes on in the background to say that these are the top n number of teams, but consistently across the board, Penn State's right up there with some top programs in the country. You've got
Kevin, I didn't quite have you there. I lost you. You froze on me.
Well, so yeah, Penn State's there at number 5. That's how I ended that. So
very good. I mean, it's tough. I mean, we talked about all of this as we get back into the swing of recording. You know, it's been a while. We've had a lot going on in our lives in the spring, so it's been tough to get back. So we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we'll work through those. But preseason rankings are stupid, and I get it. It's a thing to talk about, but I still think that they're stupid. But with preseason rankings, they're not going away anytime soon. Penn State has some serious expectations now. They got to the national semifinals in the Orange Bowl last year without starting receivers. Let's be real. They did not have quality receivers at any point in the season. Now they do. And there's where the expectations that you bring back most of your offense. You know, you lose Tyler Warren, and that's huge. I mean, that will be your biggest loss on both sides of the football, without a doubt. But again, you got to the national semifinal without a receiving game, without a passing game outside of the tight ends and running backs. Yeah, you lost Jaywan Sider, but you got back. You got Jim Knowles, and I think when you look at the additions versus the subtractions, it's very easy to see why Penn State has these lofty expectations. Can James Franklin meet those expectations? That's the question going in to 2025.
yeah, and since we've last spoke, they went all in, getting the 2 receivers from the transfer portal, but then they also went out and also snagged Traber Pena from Syracuse, easily the highest ranked wide receiver that was in the portal this last offseason. Really tore it up at Syracuse with Kyle McCord throwing the ball. Kyle McCord had a historical season from the ACC perspective. I think he set the ACC passing record for a single season, maybe the most touchdowns as well. So had a really prolific offense, and Trevor was able to shine in that offense, and kind of just shows you how all in and how many expectations internally the Penn State program has, right? They put out 2 real call for positions. They put out another call for a wide receiver, and they put out a call for a linebacker, and said those are our 2 biggest positions of need. Those kind of happened in late April, early May timeframe. So I got the Traber Pena from Syracuse, and then they also got in Amari Campbell from UNC, who's going to play linebacker. Is probably going to replace Tamir Robinson, who departed to go to USC, Southern Cal, and really just shows like how much momentum the NIL collective is getting and how much everybody in this program is bought in. I'm sure James Franklin's feeling the squeeze. I'm sure everybody in that locker room is feeling the squeeze of this is their best offseason after a really good season last year. You make it basically to the quote unquote Final Four, the national semifinal game. And it's kind of like 2017. it's kind of like 2020, but this is that next level of, you had a lot of success the year before. 2016, they win the Big Ten. 2019 was Cotton Bowl, I do believe, with Jordy Brown. Then you go into the COVID season. Obviously, that was a mess, and the whole world was changing there. 2017 just never came to fruition. What is the story of 2025? Because you made it to the national semifinal, like I mentioned, and now you basically bring back the whole team besides Tyler Warren and Abdul Carter. Massive pieces, both first round draft picks, but you've added to the offense by adding those 3 wide receiver threats. And it's not like Luke Reynolds is a slouch. It's not like the rest of that tight end room is not capable. And Denine and Sutton is still there at defensive end, and we'll see what else comes to fruition on the defensive side of the ball. But all signs point to now it feels like it's national semifinal or bust at a minimum. But we can only be hopeful that it's a berth in the national championship and ultimately winning it.
Yeah, the schedule sets up pretty nicely. We'll talk a little bit more about the schedule there a little bit later, but I mean, the schedule sets up nicely for them to have some success, especially early in the season. The game that is always going to be circled is Ohio State. They have to slay that dragon. Now, they've proven that you don't need to slay that dragon every year to get to where you want to go. They didn't slay it last year by any means, but they ended up in the Big Ten championship, and they ended up, winning a bowl game at home. They ended up winning the Fiesta Bowl against Boise State, and then they ended up being a couple plays away from beating Notre Dame and playing that national title game. And I think, when you're able to do that with a roster and with a team that isn't great, I mean, there's some depth, there was some greatness, but the fact of the matter is, again, the receivers didn't exist. And so you're able to do that. It's a much even playing field for everybody now. That's why you're seeing the Big Ten compete and blow the doors off the SEC teams, and the SEC not doing well. And that's like that across the board in almost every sport now that you can legally play players. And that's a big factor, and that's made a lot of difference in Penn State nationally.
Yeah, and you're seeing that competition. I mean, Penn State goes to the national semifinals, and lacrosse loses to Cornell there, who eventually won the national title there. Baseball looks to be doing well as well. So, and ultimately losing in the final championship game for the Big Ten, which would have been a berth to the College World Series there. So a lot of good things coming from the NIL collective, really getting momentum there. And yeah, like you said, now that everybody can pay players, we hated seeing the pay to play come into fruition, but it was needed, and now it's more above board. And there's a lawsuit that's tied up in the courts right now, and if that goes through, then you might see a salary cap, and there's definitely going to be more roster limits coming out. So a whole bunch of things going around off the field, but I think on the field you just got to focus on getting right Nevada, FIU, and Villanova to start the season. Three cupcake games. Let's face it there. And then you're going to lead into the night whiteout against.
Right, and we're going to talk about that more when we come back from this quick break on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the second segment of the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. My name is Jarrod Prugar. He's Kevin Quigley. Kevin, before we came back on the air, very quickly, you mentioned about Oregon's roster. Oregon has lost Dylan Gabriel. They've lost some talent for sure. Dan Lanning is a great young coach, but they're coming into Penn State, Beaver Stadium at night in a whiteout, something that we haven't seen in quite some time. This is a big game for Penn State. It's an early barometer check of where they're at. Same thing for Oregon. Oregon limps into that with their schedule. But again, Penn State's schedule is not great at the beginning of the season either. This is a great early season test to see which team is going to be alive for Big Ten supremacy later in the season.
And how awesome is it that we finally do get that night whiteout again? We don't get that ruined by Big Noon football. Before Big Noon football was the thing, Penn State frankly wasn't good. And, my senior year at Penn State was 2017. And, there's a noon whiteout game against Michigan that they lost. And it's just there wasn't a lot of juice. It's not that the whiteout had lost its juice, but the night whiteout is just different. Fox has kind of robbed us from that. We do get the NBC Peacock game, so you'll get Michael Robinson on the call as well. So nighttime games at Beaver Stadium is just different. And how fitting is it for Oregon's first trip to Beaver Stadium is going to be a night whiteout game. Going to be interesting. Oregon's going to be relying on Dante Moore, the transfer quarterback from UCLA, who I do believe did he get benched or did he not play at all last year against Penn State when Penn State went out to UCLA? So they've had a big roster turnover. Dylan Gabriel obviously goes to the Cleveland Browns with a couple other new quarterbacks there. So yeah, night game against Oregon, whiteout. It's good to see that that's going to get its true glory, and an NBC game as well. So it is nationally televised, one of your three main channels there. So you don't have to get Peacock, which is also refreshing for the way the modern TV world is going.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing is this is an opportunity for Penn State to showcase the whiteout on the national stage again. You know, so many times lately it's been a whiteout or a stripe out or this, that, and the other thing, and it just hasn't had the same impact as it has. Oregon's got to come across the country, fight time zones, fight that very early in the season. They're not going to necessarily know their full identity just yet. I think, you know, Dante Moore is a significant drop off from Dylan Gabriel. You can't match Dylan Gabriel's experience. I think, you know, to mention underdogs, and we'll get into the Good Dog Beverage Company ad read here after we talk about this, but Penn State should be favored, if they're not already favored, in this game by 7 to 10 points.
Yes. Just for clarity, Dante Moore was hurt last year for UCLA against Penn State. So sorry, mix up there. But yeah, as you mentioned, this episode is brought to you by Good Dog Beverage Company. Good Dog offers a variety of products, including vodka and whiskey cocktails, along with bourbon hard seltzers. Through Good Dog's Leverage the Beverage program, they donate a portion of the profits for every case sold and 100% of the merchandise sales profits to provide service dogs for people in need. You can go to gooddogbeverage.com. That's good, DOGG beverage.com to find merchandise and the closest retailer carrying Good Dog beverages to you. They're expanding, so hopefully they get to us soon.
That would be ideal. But I mean, the biggest thing again is Penn State is going to be favored in every game except for one. Let's be real, and that's going to be that game November 1st at Ohio State. They got to go into the shoe and beat them, and if they do that, then I think then you can start mentioning Penn State among the nation's elite, and that's their biggest check. Again, that's still fairly early in the season for them, but you got to go in and show, hey, listen, we went and got your defensive coordinator, and we're not a slouch. We're here to mess things up for you.
And Ohio State's going to be intriguing as well because they don't have Will Howard. So the Big Ten quarterback slate has really changed. Michigan's probably trying to become the second best quarterback. It's Bryce Underwood, I do believe, at Michigan. So interesting test there so Ohio State has to find a new quarterback, and guess who their first game is? Texas at home, big noon kickoff. So
hook 'em at noon, baby.
Arch Manning comes to town to Columbus. So yeah, Ohio State's going to have a couple of rounders games early, but then like their schedule's not very tough leading into that as well. So both teams will come in with one game test. Obviously, I think Texas is going to be a much stronger opponent than Oregon is, but if let's say Ohio State loses and they've got one loss heading into the Penn State game, man, that second loss on November 1st, that's a tough pill to swallow. So, you know, they might have their backs against the wall come November 1st. So Penn State could be undefeated. I think all signs point to that as being a definite possibility there, but then you might have a home team with their backs against the wall trying to make the college football playoff. Season's going to be, it's ripe for Penn State to take it, and they just have to slay the dragon.
Penn State, I think you can early season predict 11-1, 12-0 easily. Much like it's been the last few years. I think they beat Oregon. They've got a tough one at Kinnick. October 18th, but they have a bye week between then and Ohio State. So I think that's a nice little, nice little get ready game for Ohio State, being on the road, tough environment. Because I mean, they go to UCLA, then they come back and host Northwestern. I don't think that those games will be an issue. They host Indiana. I don't think Indiana is going to be anything to worry about. Prestigious Land Grant Trophy is on the line in East Lansing. Then you host Nebraska, and then you're at Rutgers. So I mean, again, this is an 11-1, 12-0 season. Penn State's got to make it work, and they've got to be able to figure it out and figure out a way to exercise those demons and get past the Buckeyes.
Certainly, and something I saw today, just kind of going back to transfer portal stuff, I didn't realize that Cam Miller transferred to Rutgers. So some cool little storylines late in the season there. So yeah, exciting season, a lot of expectations. Nighttime whiteout returns for the 2025 season. Renovations are in full force as well for Beaver Stadium. So Penn State football is definitely trending on the up.
Speaking of trending on the up, so is our third segment. We'll catch you after this break on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the third and final segment of the Lasching Out Podcast. He's Kevin. I'm Jarrod. Kevin, in our third segment, free for all, it's been a minute. And we have we were just talking about how much we've had on our plates, why we haven't been able to record. It's the off season. There haven't been a lot of storylines, this, that, and the other thing. You mentioned Beaver Stadium renovations. I have yet to win anything in the auctions that have been going out. I did not shell out $10,000 to Nittany Lionhead. Unfortunately, my wife would have murdered me in cold blood had that happened. I also don't know what I would have done with that. But it's the off season. It's going to be a different feel for us, I think, in the fall. I mentioned that I will not be at the whiteout game. My wife is due September 26th, so there will be hopefully no whiteout for me, and then I will be somewhere in the hospital with a new baby boy. But I will be back in action against Ohio State in Columbus, which will be nice. Hopefully that game's a good atmosphere. I don't want a noon game. Noon games aren't fun. I think that 4 o'clock, the 3-4 o'clock threshold would be really nice. Primetime games aren't fun either, but that midday is a really good spot for a game, especially one of that magnitude.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think if you're Penn State, though, a noon game at Ohio State kind of plays into your favor. You've got that older crowd, tends to be a little sleepy. The Ohio faithful don't have as much time to get as rowdy as they can for a 3:30 or 7:30 kickoff there. So, yeah, it's going to be weird to see how the atmosphere at Beaver Stadium is a little different with the West Side renovations going on, the temporary press box that's going up. All the
and speaking of temporary press box, sorry to interrupt, Kevin. I think I haven't cut you off yet today, so I wanted to get that in the third segment. So I appreciate you. The press box for the blue-white game, the media members that I talked to were under the end zone opposite the student section. There were no power outlets, nothing. There is supposed to be a temporary press box for the radio and TV aspect of it, but I also think for the print and that type, I think it's going to be one of the suites. But it's going to be very interesting to see if this project stays on track and where they actually put people.
Yeah, and I think weather's going to play a big part into it, as with any outdoor construction project. I know it's been raining cats and dogs. It rained, I think, like every day last week here in Virginia, and I think it did very much similar, if not more, in Pennsylvania. So you live 45 minutes from there, so you can attest.
It's very wet, very, very wet.
So yeah, and it'll just be interesting, like how do the renovations, how did the shuffling of the season ticket holders go? What does West Shore home field look like at the stadium, in the areas and around? What kind of promos are they cutting for that and everything like that? So it's a weird season. 2025 will be probably gearing up more for that. Obviously, for the football aspect, 2025 is massive, but from a Beaver Stadium aspect, you're looking more in that 2027 window of the renovations being fully completed. So, yeah, it's going to be a weird, really successful team, but then your stadium's under construction. So,
and that's the beauty here. Before we wrap it up, with everything that is going on around the stadium, that's the investment that the university has. Now, listen, the optics of a $700 million renovation while you're closing schools in the Commonwealth system is not easy. And they're sure as hell not bad. But this is all privately funded. And, Penn State University is a business. Football is also a business. And again, my sport management background, athletics is the front porch of the university. And for Penn State to make money, the football team's got to make money. And economically, this is why you'll always see some sort of spring game. There aren't very many things in central Pennsylvania that can bring 65,000 people to one spot. You need that for the area, for the surrounding communities. It's going to be different. Beaver Stadium is going to look different. It already does. It's already bizarre, but it goes along with that buy-in from Pat Kraft and the rest of the university. That alignment that James Franklin has talked about for umpteen million years, they finally have it, and that is why we're seeing all these improvements both on the field and in the stadium.
And as a graduate of the Commonwealth campuses, it does pain me to see Commonwealth campuses closing, but we could go on and on about things that I don't know about how the university works financially. The Commonwealth campus financial model was a little bit iffy, and a lot of the money flowed back to main campus from the Commonwealth campuses. So that's a whole nother discussion. So it does stink that some of those are closing. But if you remember, I think it was like Alabama, like when they started winning all their national championships with Nick Saban, like applications soared through the roof. Yeah. University enrollment soared through the roof. And you're getting $150 a pop. I don't know what the application fee is at Penn State. And like, those are just sunk costs, and that's funding your admissions program. That's doing a whole lot of stuff. And then you're bringing in all those students who are bringing in at least 4 years of tuition. I think 4-year graduation rates in the mid to low 50s percentage wise. And then 6-year graduation when I was in school, I think it was like 75%. So you get a lot of longevity, long paying students, the more successful your athletics department is, and especially football. So investing in football is investing in the university. And, once Beaver Stadium is $700 million nicer, and the water in the press box for the washing your hands is not ice cold, that might be a little bit refreshing.
Hey, listen, pipes freeze every once in a while. But it'll be very interesting to see kind of how it all plays out. Kevin, any parting shots before we go?
No parting shots. I am excited for the U.S. Open next week. Oakmont.
Yeah,
you and I will both be there.
Yeah, we'll have to film a live broadcast.
I think I'm going to be stuck in the merchandise tent all weekend. I think that's my volunteer assignment there. So
I'm the 19th hole marshal, so I'm not quite sure what that entails. But my main goal is to be able to hold up a quiet please sign. That's just exactly what I want, and then they probably won't get the quiet please sign back.
I think I do have to watch a training video for how to be a merchandise assistant. So, yeah, might need to get that done before Thursday next week. Hopefully I can get out and watch some golf. If you're in the Pittsburgh area or in Pennsylvania area in general, especially Western PA, try to make it out to Oakmont, one of the top 5 courses in the country, if not the world, and the U.S. Open will be there. So, exciting times for the golf world if that's your off-season sport of choice.
And if you see Kevin or I, say hi as we try to do our jobs and wonder where we went wrong and why we're not professional golfers instead just podcasters.
I've had a lot of information on why I'm not a professional golfer of late.
Yeah, and it usually starts and ends with every time I hit the ball.
Lot of quite a few rough rounds of late on the golf course, but try to get out there.
It's still to June. We'll be good. For Kevin Quigley, this has been Jarrod Prugar. Thank you as always for listening to the Lashing Out Podcast. We'll catch you again next time.